USA, sponsored by Carnation, airing live on the United Public Radio Network on 105.3 FM in New Orleans. This show's entrance has been edited, produced, and directed by Gwen Clapper from Perfect Trust Productions, LLC. You can find us at perfecttrustproductions.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monday night segment of Horsefly Chronicles Radio with myself, Julia Siracusa, and Phil Siracusa. We're broadcasting live from the International Public Radio and the United Public Radio Network on 105.3 FM from New Orleans. This evening show is fully sponsored by Carnation, so we want to thank them for their sponsorship. You'll have to do a few things in order to participate. Go over to our YouTube channel, UFO Paranormal Radio or International Public Radio. You can also go into all of our Facebook stations, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, UFO Undercover with Joe Montaldo, News on the Flip Side, also Twitch, SoundCloud, and Podbeam. And you could go over to our group too, Horsefly Chronicles Radio. And if you have any questions for our guests, please ask. Tonight, guys, we have an amazing guest. Please welcome Miss Lesley Mitchell-Clarke to the show. Lesley is a certified clinical hypnotherapist, which works with individuals who feel they have had experiences with extraterrestrial beings. Prior to her work, Lesley has also had a busy career as an actor, dancer, vocalist, and for the past 20 years, she's also been a top jazz and arts media consultant. She's also the author of Intersections, a true story of extraterrestrial contact. You can find her book on Amazon.com. So please, let's welcome her to the show.
Welcome.
Oh, thank you guys. And what a lovely introduction. It's so wonderful to be connecting with you. And boy, do I wish I was in the Big Easy right now. My God, I'm in Toronto where nothing is easy. Nothing. You know, we say about our weather up here, you know, we have 9 months of winter and 3 months of really rough sledding.
Wow. That's crazy. You have like the best energy right now. Lesley, take us to the beginning of your story. Tell us about yourself and all the amazing things that you do.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think I probably have always had what us Irish folks call the shining. I think I've always been a sensitive person. Excuse me, my headphone is just bugging me. I got to toss it and get a new one. Anyway, I've always been a sensitive person. Even when I was a tiny kid going to mass with my grandmother, I remember, you know, asking her, you know, why do some of the people have halos around their heads when they're praying and other people don't? So she said, well, we better just take that down a notch. I never got very many explanations, but I was always a little sensitive. Anyway, I did have my own rather incredible encounter experience when I was doing summer stock as a young actor at the Black Hills Playhouse, which is in the Black Hills of South Dakota. And after really just being in the business for a long time, I had, I guess, what you would call a midlife crisis. I mean, women have them too, although I didn't buy a red sports car and get a mistress. But I felt completely empty, as if I wasn't doing what I should be doing, that everything I was doing was surface and meaningless. And my husband, God bless him, said, he said, you know what, I'm going to buy you a past life regression. I had one once, and it was so it was such an incredible thing that I want you to have that experience. So he did. He bought me a past life regression, which was, of course, wonderful. But the thing that I took away from that experience more than anything was, I can do this. I don't know why. I may have done this in many lifetimes, but I can certainly induct people into trances and take them on these amazing trips. I can do this. And so it wasn't very long before I got my, basic hypnosis certification. And then after that, I built on it and I eventually became certified in past life regression and interlife regression and pediatric hypnosis and pain management and a lot of other things too. Um, but what started happening, and this I think really is just about the law of attraction and vibration and our quantum entanglement. But I was working at a really nice clinic in my early career, and about once a month, some dear person would call in because they had missing time, or they thought they had seen something unidentified, or there were aliens coming into their room at night, something like that, and nobody else on staff just wanted to touch that. Nobody else wanted to deal with that at all. But I said, I believe I can help these people if these are genuine experiences. And so I started seeing these people. And one thing I do want to mention, and I think it's very important to think this way, that the phenomena of contact, of ET contact, of incidents of high strangeness crosses all educational, financial, religious, cultural boundaries of any sort. People began coming to me who were, judges and lawyers and professors, and I also had people coming who were, on the dole, and on, as we say, on on disability and barely able to cope and hold their lives together. So um, this phenomena, that this abduction phenomena, became so fascinating to me, and I actually retooled the techniques of past life regression to work with experiencers. Now, I didn't reinvent the wheel, certainly. I adapted what was already being used for regression. And, what I have found is that disclosure as a thing, disclosure is now a grassroots element. It is not going, there's not going to be a big landing on the White House lawn. They tried that, it didn't work. So what is happening now is disclosure is working through all of our alternative media. So Julie and Philip, you are both a big part of disclosure, and and people increasing their spiritual vibration, and even just being open to the possibility that we're not alone. You have a huge role in this. So I like to use the term midwives of disclosure, and that's and that's how I see all of us who are kind of working in this milieu. And I take a lot of flack, and people say, well, all your clients must be mentally ill. Well, the fact is that I am not, as a hypnotherapist, even a master hypnotherapist in Ontario, Canada, I am not allowed to treat anyone who has been diagnosed with a mental illness. So one of the things I must be extremely careful about is my intake and understanding, the person that wants to come to me. And if I feel that they are having dissociative events, or something of that nature, I do have a wonderful coterie of open-minded psychiatrists and psychologists who I can direct that person to for the kind of help that they
You,
that they
you
need.
you're able to rule that out before you take on any clients.
I believe so. One of the blessings of my life, I now look at it that way, is back when I was working my way through university, through theater school. I had a job where I worked on the graveyard shift at the local state mental hospital, and I became a psychiatric aide and later a psychiatric technician. So I have, and this was this was so long ago, dinosaurs were roaming the earth. There were no tricyclists, there were no antidepressants. They had just developed Thorazine for violent patients, but we had padded rooms and straitjackets. So I think that I have a very finely tuned intuitive sense for what we would call mental illness or mental health issues. But I do talk for an hour to the person on the phone. I have a large intake form, and like Kathleen Marden, my colleague, woman I respect tremendously, she never um, works hypnotically with an experiencer unless they have at least some partially recalled memories. And that's a good thing to know. It can't just be, I have the feeling that people are watching me, or something like that. You know what I'm talking about.
They have to have some memories and some.
It has to, there has to be a place to start. And it's my belief that memory blocks of any kind, whether they were put in place by benevolent ETs or not so benevolent ETs, or some type of military ET collaboration, they don't last forever. They will start to disintegrate and dissolve, I think, which is why many people come to me in midlife. Many people, when the big chaos of having kids is, and raising, a lot of people come in their 40s, and they are all of a sudden having a recall of things that they just had put out of their mind.
That's amazing. So the past life regression, do people talk about at that point maybe being somewhere else, not Earth, like they were abducted and taken somewhere?
Oh, yeah. Well, what I would say is that it's very, very common for the experiencer to have been a lifelong experiencer. In other words, I don't really believe there are isolated incidents of people who had one thing, one event. I'm pretty much of the of the um, of the belief system that experiencers are lifelong experiencers and have been chosen and monitored possibly through genetic lines. I think many of the ETs are interested in heightened PSI skills or heightened psychic abilities. But what I have found in now, sometimes I should preface this. Sometimes an experiencer will allow me to also do a past life regression, which is fascinating. And what I find a lot of the time is when we get into various lives of the experiencer, is they have spent other lifetimes in other types of bodies similar to ours, in other um, Earth-like Class M planets, and other types of places. So I think that a lot of people who are incarnating here now, in our current era, are bringing with them the love and the sensibilities of sophisticated beings who have already passed through this sort of violent kind of dog eat dog separatist kind of stage that we're at now. So the vibration is increasing, because I think there are so many, and I'm going to call them like star seeds, people who have chosen to come into the physical third density, but really have lived in other lifetimes and have a consciousness of a intergalactic principle of love thy neighbor. I mean, it's really pretty simple when you come down to it. The very thing that all of the avatars have talked about, all of the prophets have talked about, is the key to increasing our spiritual vibration.
Wow.
I can relate to that because I had an experience years ago. And they're clever, they're brilliant ETs. You think it's a dream, you think it's an hallucination, you don't know what to make out of it up until someone else can validate some of the things that they think you've went through without even talking to them. So I think it's fascinating. I'm on point with you. I'm a firm believer. I always question a lot of things. Like you said, they're not going to land on the White House lawn. And I do question certain things, but I guess certain things we're never going to have answers to. Like, why do some of our military capture these things, these capsules?
Yes. Well,
when we see the Tic Tacs, but then we had another guest on who said that we don't have the camera technology to capture the best image of these things because we're not there yet.
Well, I think and now this is from what I have heard and what my clients have conveyed to me as they're engaging with their colleagues, ET colleagues. Um, I think what we have here on planet Earth are really two parallel space programs. One is the program that is generally accepted by the media, where we flew in the tin can to the moon, and and this is kind of all of these things are kind of a smokescreen, because what actually occurred is we were given a tremendous amount of technology to reverse engineer following the Roswell crash and the detente with those beings, those Zeta Reticuli, during the Truman era. So what Truman did, because there were lives, as I understand it, there were live survivors of the Roswell crash, and there were actually 3 crashes, not really one. And those craft had been brought down by some type of sound weapon that we were working on, some kind of weaponized sonic things. What brought them down? They weren't prepared for it. But what allegedly happened, according to ufology lore, is that these beings made an agreement with Truman, and they said, "Look, we're having a lot of trouble procreating. This has happened, that has happened. Can we give you guys some technology that you can handle? And in exchange, we want to be able to take a few humanoids and harvest DNA." And so apparently Truman and all the guys said, "Great, okay." And and so, and then all of this technology was then divided up for production with the United States military industrial complex. So it was like, you guys at Skunk Works, you got this. You guys at IBM, you got integrated circuits. You guys have fiber optics. You guys over here, you've got Velcro. So that's kind of what happened. And if any of your viewers are really interested in this particular period of time, which I consider really ground zero for the modern era of contact, there's a wonderful book called The Day After Roswell by Colonel Philip Corso, who just passed away not too long ago. But he was right there. In fact, he was the head of what they called the Department of Foreign Technology. Well, it was foreign, all right. So, that's how everything really began. And so we did have a terrible era of many men and women of all ages and ethnicities having, sperm extracted in different weird ways and ova extracted. Now, these things, they actually happened, and they are traumatic. But the good news is there was apparently some type of uh, termination period for this agreement, and it was honored by the Zeta Reticulites. So when it was done, and I am going to talk that maybe it was done maybe in the early 90s. So these days, I don't really see any individuals who have had contemporary experiences where the genetic material has been extracted, or where any kind of nasty medical procedure has occurred.
Very interesting. Here's a question off the cuff. With all the wars going on, and which has always been going on, and then we have technology, like you said, that we never had before. We got it from the being. Then how come any government does not have the technology to stop war? It's like shut down nuclear sites. We don't. Not ET. We don't. How come we don't have, or do we have, and we just don't?
Well, that's a really interesting question, because it's very difficult to know what is actually known technologically within the secret space program, which, I don't want to get into a paranoid bit, but from what I have heard, I really do believe that there are black ops. There was a secret space program that developed on its own right after this early period with Truman, when information was suppressed. I mean, there are trillions of dollars missing, you guys. Trillions of dollars are missing from the U.S. Treasury. Where did it go? Bases on the moon in the 50s, bases on Mars, and the people that I talk to who have been involved in these unusual programs, say, well, the military stuff on at least the moon and on Mars, looks like it came out of the 1950s. So, stuff has been going on all along. So we have two parallel space programs. I have no doubt that the secret space program is capable of um, chronological moving about through time. I think they have understood space time since the Montauk chair. I think that we have superluminal travel. I think that we are also aware of maybe certain vortices or what's the word I'm looking for? Wormholes, because we know that beings are not traveling physically in the way that we do throughout the galaxy. It's completely impractical. It just doesn't work. So something else is going on that is beyond, right now, beyond the general public's understanding of space, time, and gravity.
Do you think that anyone in the government is a hybrid?
I do.
You do,
I
yeah.
do. I do. I do think so. Although, I think we are all hybrids. I don't believe that we are the result of natural evolution on this planet. I think maybe the highest form of natural evolution might be what we would call the Bigfoot or Sasquatch or something like that. We were absolutely tinkered with. And so, it's very difficult to say. It really is. But one thing I will just sort of pause it and throw out there, we have to remember how many different types of beings we're dealing with. Do you recall? You probably had him on your show. Do you remember Paul Hellyer, the late Paul Hellyer? He was in the original press conference, and he was the Minister of Defense in Canada for a very long time, and also he was a Vice Premier of Ontario. So he was a deep politico. He was in the deep state, as we say. So before he passed away, um, only a month or so before he passed away, I had a chance to speak to him, interview him privately, and he told me that to his knowledge, the Canadian government alone had agreements with and was having regular diplomatic relations with over 80 different species.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And he had nothing to lose. He was an old man. He'd written many books. He was really an economist by trade. So he had absolutely nothing to lose. He was trying to wake us up that we needed to save our planet, because that's the message. This is the message too that we keep hearing over and over again.
Yeah.
Clean up your own backyard. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, look at us. If you were an evolved society and looking down at us, you'd just be shaking your head in disgust. It's like, how many chances do we need?
That's
How
true.
many chances do we need?
Yeah. No, I have a question. At what age do you think ET encounters generally begin? I mean, is it really young? Like,
It's really young. Now, most of the lifelong experiencers that I have worked with are able to tell me about encounters from maybe age 3.
wow.
So they're not really, they're so young, they don't really have language. So
Right.
they tell me about, the impressions and such. Now, there is some evidence to support that maybe even upon occasion, certain ETs may do interventions in a pregnancy, enhancements with a fertilized ovum. In fact, I don't know if you know Randy Kramer, Captain Randy Kramer. He's probably one of the most well-known survivors of the secret space program. He passed 3 lie detector tests. Whatever you think about him, he believes he's telling the truth. And so it is his belief system that his his mother, when she was very newly pregnant, that there was some kind of an enhancement done um, while he was still, in an ovum, basically. And indeed, these guys that have been in the super soldier program do have a lot of things in common. They have super high intelligence, and they're usually very tall. So there is a kind of a physical pattern to it. And that, again, we're talking about not ETs. We're talking about some kind of involvement with ETs. We're talking about human directed stuff. We don't need any help to be terrible to each other. We
Yeah.
don't, and so I hate this, this fear mongering, like David Icke and these guys and the reptilians. Well, there are good reptilians and bad reptilians, just like everything else. But we have to take responsibility for the condition this world is in. We have to put on our big girl and big boy pants, and we have to find the solutions ourselves. So we're being kind of parented. And if you have kids, as much as you're tempted to, sometimes you can't do it for them. You
Yes.
just can't. They just have to learn it. And I think that's kind of where we're at. But we are in very interesting times here, where we have a lot of polarization between different groups and different belief systems. So it's interesting to see what will happen. But there are many evolved people here, and lots of people are tuning in to your program and many other like-spirited programs. So I feel very excited about the future myself. I refuse to get down in the dumps. I
Yeah,
feel
you have to
very
keep
excited. I
that's
do.
good to keep your vibration up. So, when you bring people back past lives, which I would love if I would love to have that done
Ah,
personally. But then the question is, can you bring someone forward into future lifetimes and see what that soul or energy is going to be experiencing?
you can do future progressions if someone is interested in that. But the only thing I will say about that is I think there are probably more than one potential um, paths, in a future. I think there are several that are vibrating that are more likely than others, but I'm not sure that future progressions are always going to be accurate to what actually ends up happening, because I believe that the person is picking up on several different probable timelines.
Okay, so can you go into a person's past life regression and help them going forward in this lifetime
Oh, yeah.
by finding out some of the things that maybe they should have done? They can
It-
do better, that they have not did in past lifetimes. Like,
hmm,
you should be going this way, not this way, because this
Yeah.
is what your past looked like, and this is the missing links. Do you
yes,
do this well?
it's incredibly illuminating and life changing. Just like it was for me. I'm a small story, but every time I do this process, it is mind opening, epiphanies happen, big changes happen. Now, in when someone wants to come in for a past life regression, and we're going to do the process, there are kind of two ways that I like to go. Um, Sometimes a person will come and they have a very strong feeling about a specific period in time. They might have memories. They might be looking for a specific life where they had their current partner in it, so there are sometimes specific requests. And so we will instruct, or I will ask, that the soul travel to those particular lives to find out those details first. But more commonly, people hear what they need to hear, and the lives that they need to re examine are the ones that pop up. And you could call this just it's almost it's something divine. Or you could say that the subconscious mind, or our higher self, knows everything, and we ourselves know which lives we need to look at to move past something. However it happens, It's almost always that kind of epiphany where someone is shown something in a dramatic or a meaningful way for another life, in another lifetime, that directly applies to whatever's going on right now. And that instigates change in a magnificent way. So I see that all the time. It's so from my point of view, it's a past life regression is not a diversion. It is a therapeutic treatment. That's how I see it.
And some of these people maybe talk about different planets from past lives.
Hmm.
Not Earth.
Absolutely. And as I said, if the people that I'm working with who are experiencers, if I'm lucky enough to do a past life regression with them, I will often get lives on other planets. Sometimes they even cry because they're so homesick, because they're having such a hard time
Wow.
adapting in this and living in this third density. It's very challenging, for sensitive people, sensitive beings, right? And so yes, I do. Now, granted, most of the time, the kinds of beings that people describe, or the kind of bodies that people describe when they've had these other lifetimes on other planets, are usually quite in the ballpark of being, human and very humanoid. In fact, I think we can. The Lyran system, which is of course where the Anunnaki come from, ultimately uh, the Lyrans, the Aiel, the Pleiadians, they are all really ballpark like us. And in fact, we're related to them, and they can pass. They can walk about on Earth and they have no trouble with our atmosphere or anything like that. So there are a lot of I'm using a Star Trek term, but there are a lot of Class M planets in the Pleiades and in the Lyran system, and often. Um, Often planets are described that look like ours, but the colors might be different. They might be more lush. Um, Sometimes people report being in bodies that are not densely physical, that are more light bodies, and they have the ability then to travel into what we would call the afterlife, or any other kind of spiritual dimension that they choose. I mean, we're really talking about a multiverse here, guys.
Yeah.
We're not really even talking entirely about where these beings come from. It's when. And so we have interdimensional travelers. There are planets that we just don't see, that are close to us, that are actually, the whole thing is vibrating at a level that we can't even see it. I've heard that too, and I completely believe that fits in with what we know about perception. So it's endlessly fascinating. But yes, I hear about beings that they live off of it. They don't need food anymore. They live off of energy, and they go to a place in their community where they just absorb energy from this kind of tower. They can eat food if they want to, but they don't need to. So, I mean, I've heard about all kinds of things, different kinds of families with more than one spouse, which is a normal setup on some planets. So, if you can imagine it, I've probably heard it.
I have a question. So who is being taken, and is there something special that stands out in a person that the ETs want?
Well, I do really believe it's a lot more it's a lot simpler than we think. I just think that the beings that want to communicate with us are interested in communicating with people who have psychic ability
Yeah.
and can communicate telepathically, because they seem to be tracking bloodlines. There seem to be more female experiencers than male, which makes sense because the psychic thing comes through mitochondrial DNA more commonly. Not that there aren't plenty of psychic men, but more women. And I think that that's really, it's ease of communication. And it may also be that those of us or that are, I'm not going to include myself, but the people that are experiencers have made an agreement, before they came into this physical life, that they would be participating in these collaborative positive programs. So you could have a few different things going on. But I mean, imagine, you're Jane Goodall in deep in the heart of Africa, and you come across a hitherto unknown species of primate that actually has, a formed larynx and can articulate words. Now, wouldn't you prefer to spend your time in your research working with those primates that could actually talk rather than the rest of them who had not experienced that evolutional upgrade? I think it's like that a little bit.
And what do they, this is a silly question, but what do they want with us? Like what is the purpose?
Well, I think, I think there can be a variety of purposes. Now, again, we have several different things going on. We have the military and all of their experimentation, me labs, all of that dark stuff, which is human driven in collaboration with darker intentioned ETs. So there's all that kind of stuff. But the majority of incidents that are happening are, really our cousins, our space brothers and sisters are doing everything that they can do to help us uplift ourselves. So what I hear is, when people are children and they're taken on board the craft, they are playing with other children of all sorts from other planets and learning to do things like psychokinetic exercises. So I know that the people who are taken from the time they're little, it is a big educational program, and with the goal being that eventually they assume an important job in bringing in the new era.
Okay. Yep.
Fascinating. I think that some of us, like myself, are a GPS for these things after my experience.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, see, they can see you. You've got light around you. They can see you. They have higher spectrums of light. You guys are both emanating a very high vibrational signal. You're going to be on the radar. You are on the radar, whether you realize it or not. You are a friend. You're doing this. This is your job that you're doing right now to bring about peaceful disclosure so that we can save our Earth and save mankind from God knows what.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Actually,
I mean, really, guy, I don't even want to think about it. The violence in the world, a madman in Russia blowing up hospitals. This is, and this is, it's amazing that on this earth, and this is something I do hear about often, that this planet, our blue orb, is kind of known as the grand experiment, because we have such a diversity of souls in different stages of development. I mean, there are people on this earth that are violent and animalistic, and Charles Manson and Hitler, we've got that. And then on the other hand, we've got the Dalai Lama, we've got Dr. Martin Luther King, we've got we have extremely evolved spiritual people here at the same time. And I think this is a rather unique thing from what I hear, in at least in our corner of the galaxy.
I definitely agree with you. Julie and I don't know if you know, we live in a haunted house, and I could talk about malevolent entities all day and teach people that, because that's what we live with. But I will say this, it's not just a haunted house or an oppressed person or even possibly a possessed person, which is very rare, but it can happen. I also believe throughout time and history, from my knowledge and experience in the field of paranormal, that you're not going to see a demon or the devil face to face, but what he can do is take over a human or an animal. And in that case, what he can do is have that human destroy other things.
Yeah.
For example, other countries. I believe that through the broken stages, through the altering of the mind, because I know how these things work. I know how they affect people. You're not going to see it. Very rare that someone's going to see a demonic-looking being face to face. Maybe people do have seen them, but they affect the mind, and when they do affect the mind, they can control you, and you can destroy things.
Well, through fear, they're utilizing fear. They utilize fear, and first there's oppression.
You go back in history to Hitler and everyone else. You go way, way back, Mussolini. I believe, you look at some of the pictures of these people, and I'm not saying it's every single case, but some of the pictures, you look at the eyes. The eyes are the windows of the soul, and some of these people went from normal looking and basically good lives and good structure to all of a sudden destructing everything and everyone. It's as if they had an assignment, and that's what evil wants, to destroy mankind.
I agree. I agree. And remember, we're not, there are lower vibrations beneath us. We're in the middle. There are lower vibrational beings that could be considered, I don't like the word demonic, but you know what I mean, just negative energy. And you're right. It's very hard for them to manifest physically. They really can't, because they really can't exist for the only way that they can manifest is to infuse themselves into a human being and consciousness. And
I've seen people change. And I know that. And look, I'm a person who didn't believe in anything, quite frankly. I didn't believe in nothing, period. I had to experience these things myself to see the face of evil, to have an encounter. I call myself a messenger in life because of stuff I've been through. I can relate to what you're saying. Some people may say, oh, come on, aliens, it's all fake, it's make-believe. Well, quite frankly, it's not. And I'll always go back to this. I will always go back to the pyramids. And anyone says that, oh, no, the pyramids were built this way, you don't know what you're talking about. Because mankind did not build those pyramids. Period. They did not.
They did not.
It was a higher intelligence that did that for a purpose.
If I see one more stupid show on the History Channel with guys in loincloths and ropes, right now they're saying, oh, they got the sand wet, and that's how they move the things. Totally insane. The pyramids are energy stations. They are earth energy generators. They were built so long ago, 650,000 years ago. They were built by the Anunnaki, who called them the artificial mountains. And I believe that they were at one time part of an ancient power grid that surrounded the globe. Lost technology. We have free energy. I mean, Nikola Tesla was experimenting with free energy at the turn of the last century. I believe we actually have it. It's just being withheld from us because it would cause dramatic changes in our economic system, and in the sense that the greedy bastards, the upper 1%, would no longer be controlling fossil fuels.
Ah, there you go. There you go.
That's what it's all about. When the reality is, if we did switch to alternative energy sources, there would be plenty of jobs. There would be more jobs than So that's not really the concern. The concern is greed, and the greed of the top 1%.
Always about that.
I definitely agree with you 1,000%. Here's a question for you. So you said that in the beginning of the show that's possible we're hybrids, right?
Yes.
And there's, let's say, the masters that watch us and they're parenting us. So then what's your thought on some people that are beyond brilliant, beyond wealth, from their brilliancy? Is it possible they have some sort of connection with that higher being, meaning that alien being, or that being that we talk about? Like, I've had an encounter or two, so I know it's real, but is it possible that some people may have contact with these beings?
I believe that, and I believe people can even get downloads without even realizing it's really ET activity. I think people can have direct funnels of information put right into their brain. We're getting positive ideas all the time. I absolutely believe that. I think that, in the same way that a dark, ill-intentioned being can try to influence the beings of light and benevolence, can also influence us and whisper things to us and come into our dreams and help us create stuff. And Tesla, I believe, again, speaking of Tesla, I believe, said that he had regular communication with extraterrestrial beings, and that was how he came up with many of his highly advanced concepts, his free energy. And we'll never know what he really knew, because all his stuff was stolen, and it's supposedly in some kind of foundation library in Zagreb, but it's not there. And no, all his stuff is probably in that big warehouse where the Ark of the Covenant is.
It's fascinating. It's definitely fascinating. This has been a quick show. We need to have you back on. And I would love to meet you one day in person.
Yeah,
I hope so. Well, listen, if I get my wish, I'll be visiting New Orleans within the year. That's, I'm an American. I haven't been home in a long time. And of all the city, oh my God, of all the cities. And I'm a huge jazz fan. My husband is a jazz musician. In fact, my husband is an Oscar winner, because he was in the film Summer of Soul that just won the Oscar last night. He's the only white guy in it. He's playing drums with the Fifth Dimension, and you can see him. He's wearing bell bottoms that are like 3 meters wide. So I don't know how he was able to do it with those pants on, but there he was. So wasn't that a beautiful thing to have? And many artists from the Big Easy were there too on stage. So it was quite something, and I'm really happy that it won.
Oh, we're happy for him. Really quick, we have 2 minutes left to close the show. Where can people find you?
I can be found most easily. You can always email me at Lesley, Lesley, at lightworkhypnosis.com. And that's all one word, all lowercase. My website is having a facelift. I should be having the facelift, but I went for the website first. But anyway, the facelift is going on with the website, but you can reach me by that email. And also, I'm on Facebook as both Lesley Mitchell-Clarke and also Lightwork Hypnosis. And I would love to hear from you folks, even if you just have a question or a comment. I would love to hear from you. And my recent book, what was it called? Intersections. That's it. My recent book, Intersections, is available on Amazon, Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, wherever you Amazon.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
All right, wrap it up so we don't get shut down.
All right, guys.
Thank you so much.
Special thank you to Carnation for fully sponsoring the show from day one. We love them. Thank you so much. And join us next Monday night on the United Public Radio Network on 105.3 FM from New Orleans.
Everyone, have a safe, great night. Be safe, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.